Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari. Yashoda Nandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Padurikacharya Ashtotar Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Padurikacharya Ashtotar Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. So I have text 3. Vijay, you did 2 verses, right? Yeah, right. Narayana Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and to Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, and to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavatyuttama shloke bhakti bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this third day of December 2021 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, HG Dravida Swami Prabhupada. And we are in Canto 5, Chapter 9, the Supreme Character of Jada Bharat. Text number 3. Tatrapi swajana sangat shabrisham udvijamano bhagavata karma-bandha vidvangsana shravana smadana guna vivarana chadanara vinda yugalam manasa vidadat atmanaha patighatam ashankamano bhagavata nugahenanu smitan swapurva janmavali atmanam unmatta jadandha badhira surupena darshayam asalokasya. Translation. Due to his being especially gifted with the Lord's mercy, Bharata Maharaj could remember the incidents of his past life. Although he received the body of a Brahmin, he was still very much afraid of his relatives and friends who were not devotees. He was always very cautious of such association because he feared that he would again fall down. Consequently, he manifested himself before the public eye as a madman, dull, blind, and deaf, so that others would not try to talk to him. In this way, he saved himself from bad association. Within, he was always thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord and chanting the Lord's glories, which save one from the bondage of fruit of action. In this way, he saved himself from the onslaught of non-devotee associates. Purport. Every living entity is bound by different activities due to association with the modes of nature. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Karanam guna sangosya sadasadyoni janmasu. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species. Bhagavad Gita 13:22. We get different types of bodies among 8,400,000 species according to our karma. Karmana daivanitrayana. We work under the influence of material nature contaminated by the three modes, and thus we get a certain type of body according to superior order. This is called karma-bandha. To get out of this karma-bandha, one must engage himself in devotional service. Then one will not be affected by the modes of material nature. We can all chant together. Mam chiyo vabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full, this is of course Krishna speaking, Bhagavad Gita. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Bhagavad Gita 14:26. To remain immune from the material qualities, one must engage himself in devotional service, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. That is the perfection of life. When Maharaj Bharat took birth as a Brahmin, he was not very interested in the duties of a Brahmin, but within, he remained a pure Vaishnav, always thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord. As advised in the Bhagavad Gita, as Krishna advises in the Bhagavad Gita, Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru, which means, always think of me, become my devotee, or bow down to me and worship me. This is the only process by which one can be saved from the danger of repeated birth and death. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshu unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So Srila Prabhupada was always very fond of pointing out that Krishna consciousness is not a religion, it's a science. It is a science. And therefore, if we want to be successful in progressing in Krishna consciousness, we need to know that science. And it's the science of, what can we say, consciousness. It's the science of how to achieve the greatest good in our own lives and in everyone else's life. This word Shreya comes up again and again, and sometimes it's Nikshreya. Shreya means good, and Nikshreya means the ultimate good. And
it all depends on where we direct our mind, what we think about, and what we do. The state of, and then they're interdependent. Your thoughts impel your activities, and how you act will also affect your thoughts. So they work together. Now this is this wonderful pastime where Maharaj Bharat had, as Prabhupada explained, reached all the way up to Bhava level, which is right before Prema. And he was practicing strict yogic type of bhakti. He was in Pulaha ashram and meditating and always absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. And as we have heard, his consciousness became diverted by this fawn. And he developed extraordinary attachment to this fawn. Just passionate love. He was always wondering, when is this fawn, is it okay? I don't see it right now. There's so many dangers in the society. He completely broke his meditation. But because he had advanced so far in devotional service, when he left his body and became a deer, was born as a fawn himself, which is nothing but a baby deer, he still remembered everything in his past life. And he also, and that was his past life, I looked it up, the past lives. He could, the whole panoply of his previous lives, activities and everything was visible to him. Now this is a side light, but this comes up in the, I think we read it, yeah, the pastime of Puranjan, where the whole allegory that was spoken. And at the end there, King Prachanabharishat asked Narada Muni about the process of transmigration of the soul. And there's some amazing verses in there, which I remember proofing it, and I was shocked I never forgot them. How Prabhupada says that the pure devotee, those who are very advanced, they can access the previous lives. And why are they given that opportunity by Krishna? Because they can reject all these, latent desires and things. In other words, they can confront it and not let it control their present life, you see, and they're strong enough to do that. So we have a great record of all of our lives. It's very subtle within our previous, within our subconscious, if you will. It's in the mind. And that constitutes our bondage, that and the karma. What we've done, of course, is higher authorities are seeing what we do and giving us our just deserts. And our thoughts are being affected by our activities and are also affecting our activities. So the science of bhakti is how to, with the superior intelligence, enlightened intelligence, which has been purified by hearing Shastra and hearing from the pure devotees. We just heard that wonderful verse. I was right. It was Madhya 21:23, which talks about, this is the beginning of Lord Chaitanya's instructions to Sanatana Goswami. And he's describing how Krishna makes arrangement for the enlightenment of the conditioned souls, if they're ready to take it. And he does it through three ways: through the soul, through the super soul, through the guru, the enlightened guru, pure devotee who can give us the truth, and through the shastra, through the scripture. So we need to take advantage of all of these. Now we can't access the super soul directly, but by the process of devotional service, then he's directing us within and giving us instruction, inspiring us to go this way, go that way, so that we can improve our devotional service. And the most important direction we get is how we can get access to the knowledge that is explained very clearly for our understanding by the pure devotee and by the Shastra, the revealed Shastra as given by the devotees. So that's the situation we find ourselves in. By our previous good fortune or by previous activity, agyata sukriti sometimes, we've come in contact with this science through the books, through the devotees, the association, and we've taken it seriously to some degree. In other words, enough to make us sit here at 8 o'clock in the morning on a regular basis and do Bhagavatam and all the other practices. So it's worth contemplating here how this Jadabhart, who's been reborn from the deer and still has access to his previous life, is now his strategy is, I'm not even going to risk it. I'll just play, I can't even speak. Do they say blind too? I think andha, you know? And in other words, they'll think I'm just useless, and what can I do? And so they won't bother me, because he doesn't want to associate. He says he's very afraid of his relatives and associates who are non-devotees. What was Lord Chaitanya's answer when he was asked, what is the qualities of a devotee? What are the characteristics that you can see? Yeah, asatsanga tyaga, a Vaishnava achar. The primary behavior of a devotee that you can tell is that he eschews, he rejects, avoids non-devotee association. Because we know, and here's a perfect example of it, the deer wasn't the fawn was not a devotee, obviously. But it drew his attention and his affection just by being who he was. It wasn't the fawn's fault, that was his nature, you know. But it was his fault. Prabhupada makes out, you know, by willful negligence. Willful negligence. He allowed himself to become attracted and be bewildered by this deer. So now he's being very, very cautious. So it all boils down, when you think about it, to Sangha. When you read a book, when you're sitting here hearing something, you're associating either with Maya or with Krishna. Even in sitting chanting your japa, it's what are you going to associate with? Now, of course, the sound is there. We're hearing it. You know, there's some. But how much are we really paying attention? How much are we absorbed? How much are we honoring the holy name? Don't forget that inattention is one of the 10 offenses, although it says it is also an offense to be inattentive. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that's the origin of all the other offenses. Because once you become inattentive, that means you're attentive more to Maya, and she has an effect on you, modes of nature. So Prabhupada begins this purport with a quote from a verse that those of you who've been attending the evening classes may recognize, because I keep going back to it. Purushak pakatisto hi bhunkte pakati janganam. The living entity within this world who's trying to be an enjoyer is known as a Purusha. We are known as a Purusha, not the Parama Purusha, but a Purusha, means an enjoyer, because we're trying to take that role. By nature, we're Prakriti. We're energy, meant to be enjoyed by Krishna. Right? Besides these inferior energies I've just listed, said Krishna in the 7th chapter, near the beginning, Bhumar, Apolo, Vayu, earth, water, fire, etc., there's a superior energy, the Para Prakriti, which consists of all the jivas, who are sustaining the universe. You know, sustaining our little universe here. We each have little mini universes and put it all together and exploiting it, you see, in our conditioned state. So, by nature is to be Prakriti. But we take the role of Purusha, and so in this verse we call Purusha. And therefore, Purushak Prakatisto hi, the living entity, the enjoying living entity within each body, situated within material nature. Purushak Prakati, Bhunkte Prakati Jan Gunan. Bhunkte here often means enjoy, probably would say enjoy. But it means, in broader sense, experience. You're enjoying sometimes, rarely, you know, the configuration of modes, how it's interacting with your senses, but you're also suffering. So the word experience is it's better. It means enjoy and suffer. Prakati Jan Gunan. We're experiencing the interaction of these modes that are born out of nature, consistent with Prakriti Jan Gunan, and Karanam Guna Sangosa. Now, we have some free agency, especially as human beings. How we associate with those modes, whether we allow ourselves to be enwrapped in the mode of ignorance, when you know, it's not a mystery. You can read chapter 14, what that effect is. Laziness, procrastination, attraction to intoxicants, madness, very dangerous mode too, you know, and it's so prominent today. I mean, just the music, the way the music has changed. I mean, there used to be music had a tune. Are there any tunes anymore? Or is it just this talking, you know? Oh my God, you know. Anyway, yeah, everything is digitized, means dehumanized, you know. You become controlled, you become like a robot yourself, you know, always under control. So lower modes. We're surrounded by it. How to protect yourself. How to protect yourself. That Prabhupada quotes that verse in the end. But this verse describes the situation. Your destiny, whether you get born in a good or bad womb, in other words, a good or bad species, whether you go up or down or stay the same, is all determined by how you associate with the modes. That's what this verse says. Because that's going to determine how you think and how you act, and it's going to, how you start, your karma is going to be there, and what your mind is at the time you leave the body. So, in the present life, Jada Bharat is teaching us. Now, of course, we don't want to try to do that. We don't need to try to play at being dumb, deaf, and blind in order to avoid bad association. We have wonderful association. Prabhupada, through his efforts over the years, and he explains this on so many lectures. I call it a society, right? With society, association, the same word, because it's a place where you can associate with devotees. And at first, there was only one devotee. So he gave his association freely. That was his great mercy. Came all the way from India, from the ideal place, Vrindavan, could have easily stayed there, just to give us his association. Meaning, and the most important association that you get from the spiritual master is hearing, is the sound. Hearing and serving. What do we say? Guru mukha padma bhakya chitte kodaya aike arna kodaya monayasha. Prabhupada, I heard him talk sometimes about this song. He would ask them what they mean, and some devotees would try to, what's the meaning of it. But he would sometimes emphasize this particular line, because this is like a key relationship with the Guru. To hear and to take the words into your heart and not desire anything else. You can see how that is equivalent to chastity. And sometimes it's a big surrender, because it goes exactly against what your conditioned brain is telling you. That's what it means. So Guru Mukha Padma Bhakya, from the lotus mouth of the spiritual master, emanating all these words. The books we're reading here, they all came from Prabhupada's words. A few at the beginning he typed a few. It was the same idea. And we're meant to read the books, and it helps actually to read out loud, either to yourself or to others, to actually hear. But in any case, to let the words enter into our heart and accept them as the absolute truth. And sometimes it's a big surrender. We're attached to so many things, and here it says that no, that'll drag you down to hell. Give it up. Like we just had Rishabhadev's instructions. It's so seminal. Mahatsevam dvaramahiva muktes tamo dvaram yoshitang sangi sangam. Now this phrase sangi sangam is really nice. It means associating with an associate. There's also Bhagavat Sangi Sangita. Remember that verse? Tulayama Lavenapi? Says even a split second associate with a Bhagavat Sangi, with someone who's always associating with Krishna, with consciousness and words and deeds and everything, is more valuable than, what does he say? Natswagam, napuna, going to heaven, and more valuable than liberation, napunarbhavam, not coming back. That's the liberation. What to speak of any, so-called good on this plane? Martyanam kamashashisa. Why is that so valuable? Because you can get the seed. The seed may be planted by one word or one moment. What to speak of? We have hours, we have days, we have, years worth of reading here. Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya. That's associating with the pure devotee by hearing the words. But how we take advantage of that association, that makes all the difference. To really take it into our hearts and allow it to transform our consciousness and our activities. When intelligence becomes purified, and then we say, no, I'm not going to be controlled by these cruel taskmasters, lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, all these things we've been cultivating for lifetimes. Now I'm coming to you, Krishna, please engage me in your service. We have to serve. It's either Maya or Krishna. So that determination, to do that more and more, and to serve Maya less and less, that's the measure of our advancement in Krishna consciousness. So this Prabhupada quotes here another verse, karma-bandha vinetuna. This is from the third canto, the teachings of Kapila Dev. How does the living entity, how is it determined exactly what we get? So this says, karma daivinate chantur deho papattiye. Now this word karma means according to your activities, which of course are informed by your consciousness. Karma daivinate. Daivinate means the overseeing. Welcome. Yeah, please get him a seat. You can either sit on a chair or get him. This cushion here. There's no one sitting here. Hare Krishna. Welcome. Hare Krishna. You okay? Okay. So the very, very informative verse. The Daiva, which includes the super soul and the demigods, they're seeing. Nature means with their eye. They're seeing everything we do. Right? We know that nothing gets by the super soul. He understands everything, that past, present, and future, all our thoughts and our desires. That doesn't mean he's controlling our desires. You know, in other words, the desires are formed by our association with the modes. But the more that we cultivate intelligence, transcendental intelligence through hearing the Shastra, we can not yield to the lower self, but actually cultivate higher consciousness through our own will. Thinking, feeling, willing. The thinking and willing is there. The feeling may come later. So karmanai jantu deha upapattiye. Jantu is the soul in the material world. Deha upapattiye. He gets another body. Striya bhavishta uradam pungso retikanashaya. The human body takes shelter of a particle of semen and gets injected into the womb of a mother. It's very, and it all depends on our karma, what we've done and what the state of our mind is. So we're making our next body right now. And as devotees, we want to get a spiritual body. We want to turn this material body into a spiritual body by engaging in 100% in Krishna's service. That's what a pure devotee is. Every breath. There's a nice verse in the 11th canto that describes the consciousness. What is it? Kayena vacha munasindriyava buddhyatmana vanusata svabhavat kadodi yadyat sakalam parasmai narayanayeti samarpayetat. Whatever you do with your body, with your words, with your mind, with your senses, with your intelligence, with anything you have that's intrinsic to your soul as you have it, then whatever you do there, you think, this is an offering to Narayan. I'm doing this as an offering to Narayan. Now, it can't just be some superficial idea. You'll simply give that up. But actually, it has to be an offering to Narayan. Now, you can understand. You saw that with Prabhupada, picking up a phone. What's picking up a phone? But you could see he was doing it with attention and consciousness. He was picking up that phone for Krishna. He was on Krishna's mission. And whatever he was going to say in that phone or hear on that phone had to do with Krishna. Cooking, to be very conscious of it as you're putting everything together. This is going to be tasted by Krishna. I'm doing for Krishna. So in that way, all of your activities and your words and your thoughts help you to stay connected to Krishna. That's pure devotion. But obviously, it takes practice, it takes cultivation, because at present, we're carrying with us all of our conditioning, which is helping us to forget Krishna. So, this idea, now he quotes another verse, famous verse, because it's all the modes of nature. That verse was how you associate with the modes. And here, how to transcend the modes. End of the 14th chapter, next to last verse. Mam tiyova bicharena bhakti yogena sevate. So Krishna is speaking, one who engages in bhakti yoga, which is avyabhichari, means uninterrupted, pure. Not falling. That's what not falling down in any circumstance, unfailing in every circumstance. Sagunan samatichaitan. He completely transcends the modes of nature and comes to this Brahma Bhuta platform, which is above the modes of nature. And that's described in the 18th chapter. Prasanatma, Nashochati, Nakanchati, Samaksavesha Bhutam, Bhaktim Labhatepadan. So this is Bhakti Yoga. But in the 18th chapter, it's Bhakti. You can see Bhakti Yoga is the process, is sadhana Bhakti by which you're advancing. When you get to Bhakti, you're actually in eternal devotional service to Krishna. So that's based on this Brahma Bhuta platform being above the modes of nature. So the Jada Bharat didn't want to leave that Brahma Bhuta platform. He wanted to completely embody this verse, not unfailing in every circumstance. That's why it says right at the beginning, What is it that can fully satisfy the soul? Ahaituki apatiyata. Savaipung samparo dhamma yato bhakti radhokshaje. Devotional service to the transcendent Lord, which is Krishna, which is ahaituki and apatiyata, meaning no material motive. There has to be a motive, and there's one motive: Krishna's pleasure. Pleasure of the devotees, you see. Not my pleasure. But it turns out that we actually enjoy transcendentally by pleasing the Lord, pleasing His pure devotee, pleasing the other devotees. When you forget your own pleasure, you enjoy more than ever. It's a paradox, but it's true. As soon as you just think, well, how can I enjoy? Immediately you're in conditioned life. And along with that enjoyment comes the opposite. Because your so-called enjoyment is mediated by your limited senses. And that must come to an end. And as was quoted, did you quote this? Yahi sangsparjita boka dukkha yona evite. It's a pivotal verse in the Gita. It's so revolutionary. The very pleasures of the senses, and as you so nicely quoted that line in the purport, I don't know if it's in that, I don't think it's in that purport, but the happiness that you achieve, that you can experience through the senses or even the mind, material mind, is the worst enemy of the living entity. Because it draws you on to try to get it again. And you lament, oh, I lost the happiness, lamenting and hankering. Then you're in the middle of it, you're not in Brahma-bhuta anymore. So that happiness has to be rejected. And that's where austerity and penance comes in, because we're attached to those things. But then you soon find that when that attachment is turned to Krishna, you're no longer attached. Yadavadi mama chetak, Yamunacharya. I think sometimes of those experiences where I had sex. He was a great king, you can have all the advantage you want. And I just spit at the thought. Whereas you have multi-billion-dollar industries trying to make you think of that activity so that you'll give them money and you'll pay money and somehow read about it, hear about it, or actually do it. You see what I'm saying? So the very thought that draws us away from Krishna is disgust, the pure devotees. I don't even want to think about that. Just like, does anyone want to really think of the time? I mean, I don't know about you, but most of us, maybe you guys didn't. But at a certain time where I was a regular meat eater, I didn't think twice about it. Maybe when I was 23 or 24, became a vegetarian. But that was just food. You just go get hamburger. Let's do it. And so, if I'm hungry, that's what I'm thinking about. They want to make. That's what advertising is all about. But when in a higher stage, when those thoughts may cross your mind of your previous life, you just reject them. You say, "Oh, that's horrific." So what changed? Your heart changed. You've been transformed. It's not that you don't think of anything enjoyable. You always think of Krishna, of serving Krishna, of those who are serving Krishna. And that in itself cures you. We're in a disease condition. In the very, very last verse of the Rasa Panchadhyaya, that's the 5 chapters describing the Rasa dance, 29 to 30 through 33 of the 10th canto. The very last verse describes karma as a disease, and describes the cure of the disease. Well, in this case, it says hearing the Rasa dance, from the right source, from the great faith. In other words, Krishna consciousness. Rid rogam ash apahanod bihanoti dira. One becomes dhira by absorbing oneself in intense devotional service. Dhira means sober-minded, indifferent to these allurements, Now, Jad Bharat, he's a great example, and one of the things we can take here, again going back to Sangha, he knew the danger of bad association. Ultimately, that fawn was his bad association for him. And he didn't want to be allured. He says he was very afraid. He was very cautious about his relatives who were not devotees. You can imagine what that is like. I mean, we've had instances, devotees tend to get married sometimes. Okay, that's good. But sometimes they marry non-devotees, which is a disaster for their Krishna consciousness. You can imagine living with someone who's not into Krishna consciousness. I mean, the whole idea is, oh my God, It's one thing to have a nice Krishna conscious marriage where you encourage each other in Krishna consciousness, the kids becoming devotees. That can be very blissful. And great devotees, so many great devotees are, householders. But if somehow, due to the attraction of material energy, you get attracted to a non-devotee and you think, well, okay, I'll continue my Krishna consciousness, it's practically impossible. It's such a difficult thing. So that was Jada Bharat, his whole not his whole family, but there was some relatives. So he just took it, all right, I'm not even going to take a chance anymore. I can't speak, I can't see, I can't hear. So what are they going to do? Well, it said he can't see, but somehow they put him out into the field to take care of the cows. Maybe he could help somehow, I don't know. But he was happy with that. Okay, fine. He wasn't in Pulasha ashram, but he might as well have been, because he was inside. He wasn't relating to, and he was able to hear, chant, and remember Krishna. In that mood, and that and the interesting thing how there's two pastimes we will read in a few weeks, I guess, about where he revealed who he really was. The first one was they kidnapped him, some Kali worshippers from the field where he was working, and they tried to offer him as a human sacrifice to Kali, and he didn't freak out. He just said Hare Krishna, just like Ambarish. This big fiery demon is coming to burn you, the ashes. Would you just like nicely, chant Hare Krishna? Maybe if you're very advanced, but so he didn't even flinch. Just he just says okay. They're getting ready to behead him, but Kali couldn't take it. She came out of the statue, and she had her associates with her, I think, helping, and she just cut off the head of these dacoits, the worshippers. And Jada Bharat was just chanting there. And the next time when he revealed himself was really for our benefit too, with Rahugana, King Rahugana. Suddenly he started speaking. And he was giving this wonderful instruction, and those instructions are here. Now, I wanted to get an example came to mind. I've been listening to some of these memories of Prabhupada, and one devotee, I forget who was how there was an earthquake. Prabhupada was staying in the building. It was an earthquake, and maybe it was in San Francisco. I was in San Francisco early on, and. The building was swaying. It seemed like a collapse at any moment, and the devotees were like, I don't know if they were screaming, but Prabhupada said the ladies, they often scream. But Prabhupada was as cool as a cucumber. He wasn't disturbed in the slightest, showing his complete equanimity. So these books are filled with, why do we read them every morning? Why did Prabhupada insist that we have these classes? Because he knew that the intelligence can easily become contaminated without discipline. Nityam Bhagavata Sevya, it says right in the beginning, second chapter, that's one of the verses I chant, Nashtaprayasha Bhadreshu, Nityam Bhagavata Sevya. But in Bhagavad-Gita Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki, to come to firm devotional service, Nishta platform, Naishtaki, one has to hear, that one has to serve two Bhagavats, the book Bhagavat and the person Bhagavat. Explain very nice purport there in the second chapter. I forget in the 1, 2, 16, 15. And so who are those Bhagavats? Well, Bhagavat means that which is in relation to Bhagavan. The first is the Mahabhagavat, the pure devotee. And the next is the Bhagavatam itself. Now, Nityam doesn't mean at every moment, but it means regularly. Regularly. In other words, we regularly hear the Bhagavatam. Not just for 7 days, but for the rest of our life. As long as we can hear, we should be hearing Bhagavatam regularly and increase the time. And that regular hearing of Bhagavatam and the serving, and the two together, serving the Mahabhagavat, and Prabhupada has allowed us to merge those, especially when we're reading and hearing his purports and translation. That's service to him. And real service is when we, Guru Mukha Paranchita Dekore, when we make those words one with our heart and we act on them. We do those things that are recommended, even though we may, it may be austere, and we give up those things that we're attached to, even though it may be austere. And in this way, we serve the pure devotee, and we serve the Bhagavatam by attending class attentively and thinking about what's being heard from. So, and then Prabhupada closes this wonderful purport. always think of, to remain a pure Vaishnava, always think of the lotus feet of the Lord. This appears twice in the Bhagavad Gita. Always think of me, become my devotee. Bow down to me and offer and worship me, and this, so sure you will come to me. I promise you this because you're very my dear friend. And Prabhupada says this is the only process by which one can be saved from the danger of repeated birth and death. So how important is this message to get out there? You know, people have no idea. All around them, their things that they thought were supporting them are collapsing. The economy is always under threat. Inflation, the money you have is worth less. Their health is under threat. I can't even meet my friend. I might breathe the air he's breathing out, you know. And so much anxiety, you know. That we have the cure for that. We are also ourselves are experiencing so much peace from, you know, practicing Krishna consciousness. So, as a merciful physician, doesn't just, you know, this is why there was this one guy. This one incident happened where I forget his name now. He had an ugly name, but he bought some kind of pharmaceutical company, and he upped the price of insulin, which is essential, you know, for those who have diabetes to survive, like 1,000%. Suddenly, instead of you know, $20 a vial, it was like $100 or $200 a vial. And it was just so cruel and obvious, you know, that it was a crime. They arrested the guy and put him in jail. Yeah, but I mean, we live in a society where that everyone is like that. You know, we're being exploited by this one and that one. So this movement is just the opposite. I mean, devotees like Vijay and so many others who spent their lives, you know, distributing his books. It's obviously it's wonderful saintly behavior, exemplary, for the sake of those who need like the diabetic needs the insulin, you know, or some what other you have to have it, you know, to survive. So to make your life successful, or at least hopeful, you need to have this knowledge by which your life can be turned around. And so many wonderful stories. I just sort of attracted these. It's a whole life of adventure. You know, I mean, who cares? You know, someone goes and flying up into the sky in some rocket, you know, spending $1 billion. What a terrible waste of Krishna's Lakshmi, you know? Who's really benefited by that? You know, it's ridiculous. But one devotee going out, distributing 2 books, is 1,000,000 times more important than that, more significant for the health of the world, for people's, you know, benefit. So we have an opportunity to be part of that. One thing I wanted to add about Surya, then I'll stop. It's getting a little late. You know, I worked with Surya for many years. He came to, in 88. I forgot when he gave it right. He came in 1988. I came to here in 1989. And one of the first books he was pushing me to get out. It was already kind of in the works, but, you know, we need an inspiration. Was The Journey of Self-Discovery. Journey of Self-Discovery is kind of like volume 2 of the Science of Self-Realization. It's the same format. It's mostly a series of collections of articles from BTG that deal with the basic principles of devotional service, you know, reincarnation, who is a guru, like that, you know. So due to karma, he picked out the articles. Yeah, he's so good and wrote the introduction. He's a wonderful devotee also. But Surya was pushing us, you know. And so I remember working here on the book, and when it came out, and I thought of that title. And I think it's because of that title that it's still being distributed even today, because some other books are not, that we came out with. But he would always, he quoted a letter from Prabhupada. You can make new books out of my lectures. You know, this was, and this is the same reason. Okay, and so we put out a book that probably many of them have never seen before, the Quest for Enlightenment. There's also the Beyond Illusion and Doubt. And this was put together from conversations Prabhupada had on the philosophers. He was very eager that would be published. The New Vrindavan published one version of it, but we had a mass distribution book that's sometimes distributed in colleges. Another one, one of the ones you may have seen, this was the last, I think the last one he got. He was so eager to have those Prabhupada's conversations or classes in the Nectar of Devotion that he gave in Radha Damodar. I think in 1970 he went there, yeah, during the first trip to India. And so I went through that, and we picked out, and we made that slim book, Bhakti Yoga, The Art of Eternal Love, which I think was very popular at one point, distributed. So, and there's several others which I won't mention. But this was my main interaction with him. And I would spend more time in New York at that time because we didn't have the internet to work with so much. And then also the Temple Bhajan Band. I was there at the beginning when he started in 1999, and I went to a few yogas studios with him. And he very kindly asked me to produce, when we make a CD, you know, one of my recordings of the Goswami's verses and things, you know. So I always, you know, like Sura. No, here is something that you may. Oh, this was quite an experience. Where it was. I used to go down to the Tijuana Ratha Yatra, which happens in September every year. And one year I went down there, and I came back on the very same Sunday, about 5:30. And there was a message on my phone. That's when we had this is like you know, a landline, and it was from Kanka. I don't know if you remember. You remember Kanka? Yeah, she was a very very nice disciple of Srila Prabhupada. She was a nurse, and she's living up in the Bay Area with her grandchildren and grandchildren. But she was living here, and also Madhusudan and Kanchanbala were here. So I get a message from Kanka, and she says, "Oh, Dravida, you got to come down to the hospital. He may die." You know what? Yeah, because he was, you know, it was part of a diabetes thing. He's driving. He had been driving down from L.A. to the Ratha Yatra, and suddenly he had trouble breathing, and he's spitting up blood, and he pulled over on the side of the road, and the police came, and they said, "You got to go to the hospital." And nearest hospital was in Coronado, which I'd never been to, in Coronado. So I said, "Oh my God," you know. I had just come back from the Artik here, you know, and I said, "Okay." So I took a quick shower, and I got in the car, and I found the place. And there was Sura, but the time I got there, this was in a hospital. It was weird because it looked like it was closed. But I went inside, and there was, you know, the MICU, the emergency area was open, and they were in a room there. Kanka was there, and Madhusudan was there, and Kanchanbala, and they had brought, you know, the tulsi leaves and everything in case he was, because it was a serious condition. But by the time I got there, he was sitting up, you know, and making jokes and everything. He had this little cannula, what they call a cannula for the nose. It's for oxygen relief, you know. So the emergency was over, but we were joking together, and I said, "Well, let's chant this prayer." He loved this one. This is the 8 verses of the Kevalashtaka. So I had written the poem by then. So I got in a position to do it, and somehow I knocked out his cannula, you know. And he said, "What are you trying to do? Kill me or something, you know?" You know, he's joking. So later on, when he would tell this story, I was in the class, he was telling this story back in New Dwarka. And since there's Dravida here, you know, he tried to, you know, joking. So anyway, we chanted this together. It was such an experience. I just give you a sample. Some of you know it, you know. He knew the Sanskrit and everything. Madhuram madhurevyopi mangalevyopi mangalam pavanam pavanevyopi hare nama kevalam. Of sweet things, the sweetest you will taste at any time. Of things that bring good fortune, it's the perfect paradigm. Of things that purifies most powerfully. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. And there, that little room, there was Kanka, and then, you know, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. But that was a real sweet experience I had with Sura. And he was always such a staunch servant of Srila Prabhupada, especially his books and the chanting. He was a really good musician. And this, if you get on there and you just Google Temple Bhajan Band, you'll see so many, a list of all the places that they went to over the years, you know. Really helped spread the holy name, especially Ratha Yatra, they would be singing, you know. Okay, any talks?
Hare Krishna.
Go ahead, Vijay, Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Dravida Prabhu, thank you very much. And in relation to your class, if I may, I liked it when you said, who cares about the rocket going for the exploration of outer space? Better to sell at least 2 books. That is much more important. Thank you for that, Prabhu. The quote from the translation is,
which is about as long as the purport, but go ahead. Go ahead.
593.
Okay.
Quote, consequently, he manifested himself before the public eye as a madman, dull, blind, and deaf, so that others would not try to talk to him. End quote. So, Prabhu, if I may, devotees are advised to follow in the footsteps of great acharyas like Bharata. And what I see here is that the strategy used by Bharata was related to go before the public eye as a madman, dull, blind, and deaf. So, in relation to the book distribution marathon, my question is, if I go for dull, blind, and deaf, like Jada Bharata, how many books will I be able to distribute?
I think you should try it for a week and let us know how it goes. No. We should.
That is your answer?
No, we should follow his example as preaching to King Mahugana when he revealed himself. In terms of hearing or getting association, hearing the Maya talks of the, so we should be as deaf. We shouldn't hear it, and we shouldn't see those things. But no, the thing is, he was in a sort of defensive mode. He didn't want to take a chance because So this is his strategy, but he gave it up. When there was a preaching opportunity, he gave it up for, teaching King Mahugana, which became part of the Bhagavatam as the eternal instruction for all time. So the point is that in certain circumstances, there may be extreme things that we need to do in order to keep our consciousness together, but not in the ordinary course of events. We don't want to be dull, blind, and deaf. We want to be able to hear. We want to be able to speak Krishna Katha. And we want to be able to see the deities. So there's no question of that. It's just this was his strategy to avoid bad association because he was in a difficult situation. But eventually he showed his real nature. And this Rahugana was really amazed, because here, it seemed like an incompetent palanquin carrier. He couldn't even do that straight, so he gets chastised. But he didn't want to step on the bugs, So then, but when he started speaking, Rahugana says, "Oh my God, he's a realized soul." Gets off the palanquin, off his dandavats, and he speaks like anything. So we should speak Krishna Katha, and we should use our speaking and hearing and all facilities for helping others to become Krishna conscious.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Wonderful answer to my question. Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.